Thank you for joining us today on the Desert Sanctuary podcast.
Remember, all who wander in the desert are not lost.
We believe all of our stories are sacred.
We are always here if you need someone to hear your story.
Check out our blog on Pathos and also our YouTube channel.
And stay tuned for our Leaning Forward conference.
Remember, we love you.
And be at peace.
Hi, welcome to the Desert Sanctuary podcast. I'm Laura Forehand. I am here with Carl Forehand, and we have a returning guest that I'm really excited about, Melody Post being back with us. Melody is a co-host of the Cultimatum podcast, which I listen to faithfully. She is also an ex-member of a cult called the House of Yahweh, and we're going to jump into that conversation. I wanted to kick it to you first, Carl, see if there's anything you need to share, because I want to really just focus on what Melody has to share with us tonight.
Absolutely. So I won't take a bunch of time. I want to introduce you to our other podcast, which is, I'm like drawing a blank because I'm thinking about what we're going to, the Unlearning Curve.
Yep.
And it is with my son,
Mm-hmm.
who is 30 something years old. And my good friend Stuart Deloney from Snarky Faith. And we just once a month have a good time and record 3 or 4 episodes over like 3 or 4 hours each month. And we love that. And it's very adult language, very raw and unscripted.
Yep. It's good. It's
Usually
good
each of us bring a topic, and then the last one is totally open and we're just riffing off of the news or whatever we want. But I'd encourage you to check that out just to kind of think through things a little bit differently. It's a little different than this podcast. We're not necessarily interviewing guests or hearing anyone's story, but I think you might like it. It's Stuart and JD both are funny, and I'm the facts guy. So if you can imagine
You're
that.
the straight man, right?
Yeah. But we invite you to check it out and come join us. But today we have Melody Post, and Melody is kind of a friend of ours, I think. I mean, we don't talk every day, right? But we're kind of in the same business here in a way.
Yes.
That her podcast, Cultimatum, is really interesting. She has really interesting guests.
Really.
And her and Anonymous Andrew do a good job over there. But we wanted her while we're interviewing women about cults and survivor stories and things like that. She's just a person that came to mind, and we needed to have another conversation with her that we haven't had before. So, Melody, whenever you're ready, you just take off on your story. Tell us about being in that cult and how you grew up and those kind of things.
Well, first of all, I'm going to say thank you so much for having me back, and I certainly consider Carl and Laura friends. I mean, we've connected on social media now, and we're in that that I would say ex-cult high control group community, and we support one another,
right?
And because it's a journey, and there's a lot of healing that takes place in that space, and the more support you can have, I always say, the better.
Absolutely.
So, and you do, when you leave a group like that, you lose a lot of your connections and your friends. So and it can be difficult to make friends outside of those communities. So connecting with other survivors has been really just really helpful for me, and I can see that it helps a lot of other people too, because you do feel quite alone when you first leave, and to realize there's other people out there going through similar situations is so reassuring, and really does. And you can get advice, right? You can talk to somebody who's been through it, and so that feeling of doom and gloom you first feel when you get out, you can get that. You can, when you talk to somebody else who's like, I know it's hard now, but I promise it gets easier. And when you hear that, that can be really reassuring. I mean, I wished I had had that kind of support or that kind of connection or network when I left my cult all those years ago. I left, and I joined. I'll start with where I joined. I joined with my family in 1989. It was my mom, my dad, my sister, and myself. And at that time, that the group was a mix of Judaism and Christianity. Basically, they went with the teaching or the laws of the Old Testament that the Jewish people follow, but basically added Christ into it. So they threw a little Jesus in there too. And then there, of course, they pulled in from other religions and stuff too, and they had their mix because even though they considered themselves following the laws of Judaism, we did not celebrate Christmas, nor did we celebrate Hanukkah. So
Mm-hmm.
they had their own flair to it.
Hmm.
The leader of that group, the House of Yahweh, was Israel Hawkins. He has since passed away. I believe it was in 2021, I believe October of 2021. I think he was like 87 years old. So, and I will say I fell into or under the spell of the cult quite quickly for being a teenager. I think that I was searching for something. I had a boyfriend at the time, and I was only 15, and I was having sex. My parents didn't realize that, and I think I was having a lot of guilt because of
Mm-hmm.
that. And I think that to ease that guilt, I felt like the cult could give me a fresh start because
Sure.
they taught, well, if you come here and you get baptized, all of your sins are cleansed and
Right.
you get to start over. And that sounded pretty good to me at that time. Um, they also claim to be the two witnesses spoken of in the Bible. They did teach a lot of doomsday stuff. They did a lot of predicting of the end of the world. Um, I later learned that because I ended up marrying his son, but I later had learned that he was a con man even before he had started this cult
Mm-hmm.
or this group. He had conned people into buying ice machines that didn't work when he was a teenager. So this was not a new realm for him. This was just, I think, his big con, right?
Yeah.
It was the one that I think gave him the most power and the most money, and it was the best con that I think he had come up with.
Yeah.
Because he had kind of actually stolen the idea for the religion from his brother, who also had another organization also called the House of Yahweh in Odessa, Texas. And this one was out of Abilene, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Um, I was betrothed to his son by the time I was 16. I was married by the time I was 18, and I had my first baby by the time I was 19. So I mean, at the time it seemed to take forever. I look back and it was like boom, boom, boom. It just all happened so quick that I was like, I didn't even have time to think. And as a teenager, you don't really think, right? I mean, obviously, we were way too young to get married. He was 17 when we got married. I was 18, he was 17. And I have three sons now, all adults, and I think of them at 17, and not one of them would have been. And I cannot think of any 17-year-old
Yeah.
that is ready to be married, right? And start having
Right.
children.
Exactly.
That's way too young. But
Yeah.
they encourage that, right? They encourage that. They don't want you to get higher education. They encourage you to get married and start having babies. I think partly for members.
Hmm.
That those are when you have the children there and you're indoctrinating them from birth, they think, well, these are going to be our most faithful
Mm-hmm.
members, right? They're going to be completely dedicated to this place because they're not going to have any exposure to anything
Right.
but this from birth on. And so I got married in 1992 after graduating high school. My dad did have me graduate high school. I was very grateful for that. A lot of people didn't do that. I mean, I think, and if it hadn't been for my grandpa's influence, who valued education, I think my parents probably would have let me get married at 16. So I'm very grateful that that didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
But um, I didn't walk in graduation because it fell on a Saturday, and that was not something we did.
The
We couldn't
Sabbath.
do,
Yeah.
yep, because it was considered the Sabbath. So we didn't do
Right.
anything on the Sabbath except we weren't even allowed to cook. I mean, we everything had to be pre-cooked the day before, and everything had to we could reheat things, but we could not cook.
Mm.
Um, and we couldn't buy and sell. You couldn't go to the grocery store and any of those types of, or really anything of your own pleasure. The only thing you could do was go to the services, read your Bible. You could relax. You could take a nap, but there wasn't a lot of freedom during those
Mm.
that time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but we can jump into back. I'll jump backwards just a little bit and also say that during my pregnancy, I never once saw a doctor. I
Mhm.
saw midwives only. It
Mhm.
was a home birth. Um, and it ended up being a pretty dangerous home birth. I probably should have been, in a hospital for that. I mean, he was 9 pounds, 4 ounces when he was born. I was 16 days overdue. It was pretty dangerous, and the cord was wrapped around his neck, and
Oh,
they
wow.
were getting ready to. I had been in labor for over 48 hours. They were saying they were going to call an ambulance if I didn't get him out in the next push, and I just took everything, all the energy I had left
Yeah.
after 48 hours, and was like, I'm getting this baby out. I don't, because they had told me. One of the midwives had told me not to make any noise when I was pushing early on, and said, you're putting all the energy into your noise and you're not putting the energy into your push. And I was like, but when they told me that the baby was in distress, and that I had to get the baby out in the next push, I was just like, I don't care who's upset. I don't care who's mad at me. I'm making whatever noises I have to make, and I'm getting this
Wow.
baby out.
Yeah.
Oh my
Get out of
gosh.
my way. Yeah.
Wow.
Yes. So, but I'll go into now and then, and it was during this time, actually during my pregnancy, that the teachings really started shifting. They basically, my father-in-law he was caught having an affair with his secretary.
Hmm.
And instead of apologizing, or, whatever a normal person under normal circumstances might do, ask for forgiveness or even ask for a divorce, he just said, I've done nothing wrong and I have nothing to apologize for. And I would never sin. She is just another wife.
Mm.
And all the men are now going to be allowed to have more than one wife.
Mm.
And this is going to be a new teaching in the group. And that
So can I,
immediately did not sit well with me.
Yeah, I
can
bet.
can I interrupt? So,
Yeah.
so, so whatever the situation, rules and things like that either didn't apply to him or they got more lax depending on what he did. But you said when you came in, you were absolved of your previous sins,
Yes.
but don't they start keeping track then right after that of your sins and everything you do wrong? And those
Yes.
things tend to get more severe, not easier, right? They didn't loosen the
Oh,
rules on you.
no, no, the rules were not loosened. And yeah, and I will say that also became even more controlling and worse after I left as well. There was a lot of the tattletaling mentality, like you were encouraged to tell on people who weren't following the rules or doing things correctly or properly. And there were rewards for being a tattletale. That environment rewards that kind of behavior. So then what does that create? That
Right.
creates an environment where you don't trust anybody
Right.
around you. And if you start with that critical thinking kicks in, you're not going to, even your best friend, you're not going to turn to your best friend and say, hey, are you questioning this teaching too? How are you feeling
Hmm.
about this? Because then your friend's going to go, oh, I'm going straight to the leader, Israel Hawkins, and I'm going to tell him that, Melody's questioning this.
Hmm.
And then, the next thing you know, you're pulled into the office.
Hmm.
But after leaving, they actually had gotten to the point where they started doing these major confessions where they had the counselors, which, mind you, were not counselors. They were just elders and their wives
Mm.
who were just ordained by the church. There was no formal training to be a counselor of any sort. But and they started, I believe, in writing and audio recordings of people's confessions, of you were supposed to go in and tell your counselor every sin you had ever committed. And they had all of this on record, and it was basically then used to blackmail people when they would leave. Oh, you if you talk out about us and you tell our secrets, we're going to tell your secrets too.
So
And
I listen to a lot of um cult like documentaries and things like that.
yes,
And this sounds very much like Scientology because they do the same
yes,
thing where you have to basically confess everything and they call it collateral. So if you try to
yes,
leave, they've got a lot of crap on you that,
yes,
and it could be about your family. It could be detrimental to your family. So that's another
yes,
fear tactic to keep people inside, in the cult, to keep them from
Yes.
leaving. So anyway,
Yes,
when you said that, it
absolutely.
reminded me
And
of that.
it is absolutely. And I'm guessing they stole that one from Scientology. Like I
Hmm.
said, they would pull things from other
Hmm.
religions and churches and groups that they liked. If he liked it, if the leader liked it, he would incorporate it. He would latch onto it and incorporate it. Um, and another bizarre, interesting thing that he did when my mother-in-law ultimately did end up filing for divorce, and suddenly then the teaching changed, and now Satan was a woman.
Oh gosh.
And not only was Satan a woman, but she could live right down the road in a farmhouse and look very innocent.
Oh boy.
Oh, well, how convenient. So now, and
Mhm.
they still to this day teach that Satan is a woman
Mm.
Mm.
because once my mother-in-law left and filed for divorce, then Satan became a woman.
Mm.
Wow.
So
Mm.
that's just another, and that teaching, I think it was just because he was infuriated that she had the audacity to leave him and file for divorce.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Because I think he really thought that eventually she would comply to this teaching and she would come under his spell, so to speak, and she would just go along with the flow,
Hmm.
and that she would get the other women to do the same because she was a very prominent figure in the organization, and she did have a way with people, and she certainly had an influence on the female um, members of the
Hmm.
organization. Now, they looked up to her.
Hmm. Sure.
And I think he thought that she could just pull them in and get everybody to comply. And when that didn't happen, boy, he was not happy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So similar to Greg Locke, when Greg Locke wanted to have an affair with his secretary again,
Hmm.
his wife all of a sudden her Bible study became full of witches,
Uh,
and
yep.
publicly they needed to call him out. He was talking about giving out addresses. We know where you live and all that kind of stuff. Uh, I want to know. I'm sorry for interrupting you, but
Oh, no, no.
I want to know why people join cults. You're kind of getting to be an expert now. You've interviewed so many people.
Hmm.
In those stories, what do you see? Why do people go into cults? And I also am curious if you consider most religion to be cult-like at least, but then why do people join them? Why?
I was going to kind of piggyback off that because that was a question I had, and I don't want you to speak for your parents, but that
Right.
was my question is kind of like what drew them to it because I don't feel like people go, that's a cult and I'm going to join it. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. And we say that all the time on Cultimatum. People
Yeah.
don't join cults, they join religious organizations. I mean, we believed we had found the truth, right? Aren't they all the
Sure.
truth?
Aren't they
They're all
all?
the
That's right.
truth.
Hmm.
So,
So many truths
so
out there.
yes, they're all the truth. We're the ones who are going to be saved.
Yeah.
Um, so I think to preface it, nobody wakes up and says, I'm going to join a cult today. What I will say is that my dad was always searching for a truth or the
Mhm.
truth. And he did a lot of Bible studies, and he was doing a lot of that with a cousin of his. And that's where he came across the propaganda for the House of Yahweh. And it was a booklet that said the name of the creator. And basically, the booklet was saying that if you pray to God, basically you're praying to Baal and you're praying to the devil. That God really is the devil. The name of God is the devil. So if
Okay.
you're praying to God, it's the devil. And that the true name of the creator is Yahweh. So if your prayers aren't being answered, it's because you're not praying to
Oh
the
boy.
right deity, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
so that was the thing that I think hooked my dad for sure. Um, and it it's written the propaganda is written in a very manipulative way. They copy and paste and have all these clippings of other books and things to back up what they're saying. But of course, they're also controlling the information, right? So
Right.
they're choosing what information, what clips to put in there. And I think the other thing that I will say draws people in general into these type of organizations, I think is um, I think certain people are more vulnerable. Certainly if you're going through a difficult time, if you're going
Sure.
through a transition phase, if
Mhm.
you've moved to a new area, if
Mhm.
you're out on your own for the first time, if you're going through a divorce, if you've recently lost a child or a parent or you're grieving, all of those things can make you vulnerable.
Mhm.
And I think the thing that uh, a cult offers is very similar to what a church offers. It
Yep.
offers you community. It
Yep.
offers you a place to belong, and I think it gives you a sense of purpose. You're there, and you're like, you feel like, okay, I know what I'm doing here. I
Mhm.
belong here, and they
Mhm.
make you feel that. You get that love
Love
bombing when
bomb.
you walk
Yep.
in the
Yeah.
door. Yes, you're feel. I mean, my first feast, I didn't want to go home. I was like, oh my gosh, this place is amazing. These people are amazing. And you're only seeing the good side, right? You're only seeing the outer layer. You haven't gotten into the inner layers of the onion, and you haven't seen what's really going on
Mhm.
at the core. You're just seeing that surface level. And that I think is with any organization. I mean,
Yep.
heck, even a job.
Yeah.
You go to
Mhm.
apply for a job, they're not going to put their worst foot forward, right? They're going to
Right.
tell you all the good things about their organization and their company. They're not going to tell you the dirt that's going on behind closed doors that
Mhm.
nobody's supposed to know about. So that's pretty much just kind of a little bit of human nature, but it
Mhm.
certainly gets people in before they realize what they're into,
Mhm.
right? You're now, it's kind of like you're stepping into quicksand, and before you know it, you're up to your neck in it, because now, especially in organizations where they encourage you to move close to the organization or sell your house or sell your car or whatever it is, and come down here and be part of this. Well, now if you go down there and you're working for the house of Yahweh and you're in the work of Yahweh and you've sold your house and your car, what do you've just
You're stuck.
lost everything. Yes,
Yeah.
you've lost you've now invested everything you own into this place. And you're like, well, how, if I walk away, I'm literally losing everything
That's
too.
Mhm.
right.
Yeah.
So they put you in that position to where if you walk away, you're pretty much starting over. You're starting from square one.
Mhm.
And the longer you're in, the harder it is to leave, right? Because the more invested you
That's
become.
right.
And so it becomes this very tricky balancing act, especially if you get into that that state of PMO, which is it's a Jehovah's Witness token term, but where you're physically in but mentally out.
Mhm.
That can be, and that can last for years for some people,
Yeah.
to where they know they don't believe it anymore, but they
Mhm.
now have to logistically figure out, how do I get myself out of this now?
Mhm.
And
And something else that I thought about while you were saying that is, they may lose everything like physically, like if you're talking about like selling your house, your car, and all that stuff. But then also, like the longer you're in it, the more like that takes a toll on you emotionally, and you don't want to look
yes,
stupid. And how could I, it's kind of like, how did I get how could I have bought into this? And so that makes
yes,
it hard sometimes to get out because you're just like, I'm going to look like a complete idiot and I've got to save face. So you kind of
yes,
stay in, you might be, like you said, you might be physically in, but mentally out. But that's a lot of times to save face because, how are you going to explain that I was part of a cult
absolutely.
and, you know, not have people
It's,
go,
yes,
oh
there's an
my gosh.
embarrassment attached
Yes.
to it. There's a
Yeah.
stigma attached
Yep.
to it,
Shame.
Yep.
especially with the term cult
Yes.
specifically.
Yes.
Um, Once you realize that's what it is, you're like, whoa, I mean, I didn't use the word cult. I would say for at least, I'm going to say for at least 5 years after I left.
Mm-hmm.
Once, I think it was when I really started doing some digging and searching into other groups and
Mm-hmm.
started learning that I'm telling you right now, when I started really figuring out that the tactics used by Jehovah's Witness, Seventh day Adventist, but Scientology, the House of Yahweh, it's all the same.
Yeah.
And when I figured that out, these tactics, that it's it is a method of controlling people, it was like my mind was blown. I was just like,
Mm-hmm.
whoa, wait a minute. Because I just thought we accidentally stumbled into this cult. It's not a lot of things. Not many people get involved in those. And when I realized how many people there are, how many organizations there are, I was just like, whoa, whoa, we were victims. We were targeted. This
Yeah.
was done on purpose. This
Yeah.
wasn't like they just accidentally, it accidentally turned into a cult. Because I kind of almost and when I first left said, well, I think he had good intentions in the beginning, and maybe he did, but now I think he really was a con man. But in the beginning, I thought maybe he had good intentions at the start, and it just went awry, right? It
Mm.
kind of went off the rails, and it wasn't what he intended. I don't think that anymore. I
And
think most of these leaders know what they're doing now.
oh, for sure. And I'm gonna kind of go back to what you were saying earlier, and that's why, like, when you start looking into your particular organization, whether it's a, mega church or what would be considered a cult,
Right.
it is so important, like you said at the beginning, to find that community, like what you guys are doing with Cultimatum. It's so important to get that community, so that you don't feel such an overwhelming sense of embarrassment or when
Yes.
you come out. I mean, you have people that are like, I've been there. I get what you're going through. I mean, I just think, because I wrote that down before you even said it, Melody. I said, we all want to belong and we all have this sense of community. I mean, I don't think anybody wakes up, in the morning and says, I hope I'm isolated and I don't see anybody and I never,
Yeah.
I don't talk to anybody all day. I mean, we go to our jobs, we have friendships, we have things because we want that sense of community. We want that sense of belonging. But the way that like you said, the cults, and even I'm gonna, I know you asked that question if Melody thinks that churches are cults or can be cults. I definitely think they can be. And they're just very meticulous in how they do things. I think churches are the same way. I think they're, like you said, they're an organization and they have a way of doing business so that, you get pulled in. And that love
Yes.
bombing is a huge part
Yes.
of that. Huge part of that.
Mhm.
Yes, and I'll tell you, I will say that and to answer that question, in my opinion, yes, because I think that even if it starts out with good intentions, it always ends up being about the money. It
Hmm?
always ends up being about the money. And once it becomes about the money, it's no longer about the people.
Right.
Yeah.
And therefore then the priorities have changed and now you're using people to get the money, whether that's them volunteering their time, whether that's them helping build a building, whether that's them doing paying tithes, whatever it is,
Mhm.
it ends up being a numbers game to the
Yeah.
people in the top positions, and therefore then I think it some are definitely more destructive than others. Some are more controlling than others. So I don't think that I think that certainly you can be in a church that may not be super destructive to your family or you personally. I think that is possible.
Mhm.
I will say for me, I can't do it anymore because I see beyond the facade.
Yeah.
I tried. I tried to go to other churches. I tried to go to other organizations after I left, but I had my guard up. I was just like, whoa. Just I would walk in the door like, hey, you don't tell me what to believe. Don't
Mhm.
tell me how to pray. Don't tell me what the Bible means and don't ask me for my money.
Hmm.
That was my attitude when I walked in. So I walked in and I literally was thinking in my head, give me a reason to walk out the door because I already am just ready to run.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
I think that was the damaged part of me, the religious trauma part of
Mhm.
me, to where I had been so taken advantage of and felt so taken for granted that I
Sure.
was like, that's not going to happen to me again, and I'm going to make sure
Hmm.
of it. But
Hmm.
I couldn't get comfortable
Yeah.
anywhere else. I
I
hope
would
that
say
answers your question.
no, and I think that's very true of me too. Last year we went to go, we're friends with gosh, what would you, a drag queen, sorry, a drag queen.
Oh.
I was going to say female impersonator. I was like, that's not right.
You're doing my
Um,
thing.
a drag
Telling
queen.
a story. I don't
And
know what
we
story
went
you're telling.
to, their name is Flamey Grant, amazing entertainer. And we went to this church in Lincoln, and it is very like welcoming of the LGBTQ
Yeah, it's very
population,
progressive and
very, right? And so we went and we were watching this concert, but
pastor.
the
Yeah,
pastor, which who was a female, okay, but
Mm.
like
very nice and
very nice, but immediately just glommed onto us. And I was just like, I mean,
Oh.
I hope she could
gee,
probably see it on my face. I was just like, you need to
take that
back
somewhere
back
else. Yeah,
up,
You're
back up.
picking the
Because
wrong
yeah,
people.
I'm
yeah.
like,
We've
I'm
been
not,
there, done that.
yeah, not buying it. And I'm like, they were probably as genuine can be, but I like you were saying, I have been tainted in that area.
Yeah.
And I do not see that as genuine or authentic. If you're going to come up to me and be, I mean, there are people when Carl was a pastor and I was the pastor's wife, and 6 weeks of us being there, women would come up to me and be like, "Oh, you're just my best friend now," and I'm like,
Mm.
"What?
You don't even know who I
You don't
am.
You're
even
like,
know me? Oh my
yeah.
gosh, stop!"
Our
And
son talks about that
yeah,
too.
oh, okay, does he?
Yeah,
Yeah,
JD, our son's 30 something now,
he's 34.
34. And he talks about people on the street. We lived in a small town of
Hmm.
250 at the
Hmm.
first pastorate. And he talks about people he didn't even know come up and talk to him like they knew him and he had the right to
Uh,
talk to him and everything else. But I think you're right about cults, that prey on that idea that people want to be accepted, that
Hmm.
they're in a
yes.
place where they don't have a father figure or whatever. And we have this deep need. Tell me if you disagree with any of this. Just jump in and tell me. Um, we have this deep need for connection.
Hmm.
I think that it's innate in us that we need to
Absolutely.
connect. I'm not sure if we need God or not because because us and God use so ineffectively.
Mm-hmm.
But I do know we need people.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
physically we'll die without attachment when we're
Yeah.
little babies. So we need that connection with another human being and it doesn't go away. We need different things at different times, but uh, a religion, even if it's suspect, still gives us that high. My friend calls it the high of righteousness
Mm.
Yeah.
because it says, I'm right or we're right and God is on our side. And we want to be on that team, whether it's a sports team or a church or a cult or whatever. We want to be on the right team that
Right.
gives us the advantage that we can connect with. And then when we're wrong, we don't like to admit we're wrong, right? And
Yeah.
so,
Well, and especially when there's fear interwoven with all that, right? So
Oh, for
it's not,
sure.
I mean, you've got that fear aspect that, if I don't believe and do everything that this church or this cult or whatever organization says, I'm going to lose that love. I'm going to lose my livelihood.
Yep.
I'm going to lose my salvation. I'm going to go to hell. I mean,
Yeah.
those are some very serious fear tactics.
Oh, they are. And those exist in churches and cults.
Absolutely.
Because the fear of hell or some kind of torturous afterlife is, I think, nothing any of us would choose.
Right.
And and the what you were saying, Carl, with the us versus them mentality, it immediately creates division
Mm.
with that human connection. And as we're going in, we don't even see it.
Yeah,
We
right.
don't even see it as division, right? It's because it's basically, if you're not with us, you're against us. Well, that actually is detrimental to society as a whole. It causes division, it causes hate, it breeds it actually can create violence, right? Well, then you start dehumanizing other humans. Well, they weren't going to be saved anyway.
and
Mm.
I
every
mean,
single pastor does that.
Yeah.
Every
yeah,
single pastor does that. They say the world, and the world means everybody outside our
yeah,
doors. It even means
Right.
the church down the road that's barely different than us. They are a part of the world, and we forget that, the song is "We are the world," that we're a part of the world also.
Mm.
And it's confusing in scripture because John at one point says God loved the cosmos. He loved the universe and everything in it, means everything
Right.
in it. And later John says, don't love the world or anything in it. And it's the second one that we latch onto. It's the one in first John, not in John. The one in First John says, don't love the world or anything in it, for the things of the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, the pride of life. So it relates it to sin, but says don't love
Right.
the world. But that's the verse. Those kind of verses are what we use to start wars and
Yes.
exterminate Native Americans and enslave
Yes.
people. Um,
Yes.
like
Absolutely.
you said, when we can otherize, and we've got to, in a religion, a cult like religion, you have to,
You
because
have to.
we have to be right, they have to be wrong, and they have to be other or different, or why would you be here? And so,
Exactly. And exactly because you have to justify because you're making sacrifices to be there most of the time. And you
mm,
have to justify those sacrifices. You have to believe, well, I'm making these sacrifices so that I will be rewarded in heaven. And
mm,
if you aren't doing that, then why are you there? Why are
Yeah.
you wasting your time? That's and I think that's what they use. That's another control tactic. And I don't know that all of them know that they're doing that. I don't
right,
believe they all do. I don't
right.
think they all
I
do.
agree. Yeah,
I don't think everyone in those positions has ill intentions and starts out with, these massive control issues or wants that. I don't think all of them do.
I agree.
And that would probably be the big difference between a really destructive group and probably one that's not so destructive.
Yeah,
One that really does have good intentions. I think it really does come from the leadership down. I
Hmm.
think if you have a good leader with a good heart and good intentions, that it's going to be a lot less destructive and it's not going to go down that it's not going to go off the rails like a crazy train.
Right.
yeah.
Um,
I'm not sure how I feel about that, because I think sometimes when you don't know what you're doing, you may cause a lot of damage that you don't even know you're doing. And
right,
that would be my case. We were grace oriented. When I was a pastor, we were love oriented, went
right.
overboard on some of those things. But I
Mm,
know that I hurt people, and I know that by my ignorance, I um, led people down the wrong path. And so that I think that comes just because of what we've kind of already mentioned, keeping the trains running, right? You mentioned that a little
yeah,
while ago. It's an organization, we got to keep the trains running. Real connection would be a person like a mother to a child. Real
right.
connection is a best friend that you can tell anything. Uh, Faux connection is when I have to be a part of a group and I have to do exactly
Right.
what they say, and I have to give all my possessions to them. And
Yeah.
that's kind of faux connection. It's not real connection. It's not a real community.
No.
Um, but it's made to look like this is our only option. We're going to save the world. And the world, by the way, is everybody out there, like we talked about before, that's evil.
Yep. I want to touch a little bit on what
Sure.
you said that your son said
Hmm.
about people coming up to him and talking to him like he knows him, which
Yeah.
happens a lot in churches and cults. And I think I'm just going to say for anybody listening that maybe is still going to a church or in an organization, don't ever fall into that trap because I think that it can be a very dangerous trap for especially parents with their children to think that they can trust everyone around them just because they're in this church or they're in this cult or they're in this group. Everyone
Absolutely.
here is safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
So
you
true.
let down your guard and you can end up exposing your children to people that are going to harm them,
Yeah.
hurt them, molest them, take advantage of them. And you have to realize there are bad people
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
your children need to be protected from that. And people need to earn your trust.
Right.
That you trust is something that you have to earn. And you don't get to just say, "Oh, I'm trustworthy because I'm here in this church or I'm here in this group, this cult, this
Hmm.
religious organization or whatever it is." Because there are people that go in there with the sole purpose of thinking that people will have their guard down in order to purposely victimize children
Right.
because they know
Absolutely.
people will. So that can be a very dangerous thing. So hopefully that didn't happen to your son or anything. But the first thing I thought of is, yeah, when you're in those organizations, your guard is down because you think you're around safe people. You
Mhm.
tell yourself that you're around everyone here is safe.
Yeah.
One of the principles of the New Testament church is that you forgive quickly and you love unconditionally. Those two things can be very destructive,
Hmm.
even though
Yeah.
they sound holy and they sound good, um, because we might require our young daughters or to just forgive people real quickly and get over it.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
they're not going to get over it very quickly. It's going to damage them, and especially if that person wasn't held accountable. You made me
Yes.
think of our daughters hung around someone that I pretty much doubt that he was anything bad sexually or anything like that. But we found out later he is a big piece of shit, and there's a
Mm,
lot of things that he did to other people uh,
mm.
that were just shitty. And his daughter-in-law,
You're gonna have to tell me who this is after we're
his
done recording. You
his
need to tell me
daughter
who.
his daughter-in-law told us her story on the podcast, and you'll get it
Uh,
later
Mm,
who it is.
yeah. Mm.
But yeah, I think you're exactly right about that.
Well,
it can put you into a trap
yeah,
without even realizing it.
yeah. Well, and I think forgiveness too is kind of like we feel like it's just a quick, easy way. But then, like, I always struggled with that because then it's like, but I'm still wrestling with so many things that I don't have answers for. I don't understand why this happened. And yet I'm just told you have to forgive.
Right.
And like that just, that will mess with you psychologically because, or you just continue to stuff whatever it is that's, detrimental or harmful to you. It just, you stuff it. Well, eventually, as we all know from, either doing our own work or just from, learning about trauma, your body hangs on to it. It is not going anywhere. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, and the more you stuff it, then it can cause health issues. It can cause mental health issues.
100%.
I mean, it can wreak havoc in your life. And to tell someone how and when and how fast they should forgive, that's a very personal thing. That
Mhm.
really has to do with how they're processing this information, how remorseful the person who may have taken advantage of them is. And maybe they'll never get an apology, but an apology is would be a start, but a lot of times in these groups you're told to forgive before somebody even asks for forgiveness.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You're just supposed to just do it and you're just supposed to feel that way. And like you said, it almost creates a group an environment where you have to pretend that
Mhm.
you've forgiven and then you stuff your real emotions and bury them,
Well,
which
and
is hurtful.
yeah, and then like, I mean, if you think about, and this isn't something I'm just pulling out of, my hat. We've heard several stories of, sexual abuse in the church and things like that. And it's like we're so quick to tell the victim to forgive, but we do nothing to those that are, it's a way to absolve the perpetrator, I
Hmm.
guess.
Yes.
And keep,
Yes.
and like you said, Melody, keep the train running, right?
Yeah.
Keep the money flowing. And
Yes.
yeah,
The person we told you about before the show, she calls it the F word. That
yeah, forgiveness
forgiveness
is the F
Oh,
the F word.
word.
Um,
there we go.
you know,
Mhm.
if just think about if you know, you got pregnant before marriage. In some churches, you would be drugged before the congregation and have to confess and all that. But then when someone does something as horrific as sexually assaulting someone inside the church,
Yeah.
we just want to get over it quick so we don't hurt their career or cause them any embarrassment. And then the survivors have to live with that, and
Mhm.
they're told to
Yeah.
forgive quickly. And you got to love everybody, and you got to, and it's all to preserve the organization. It's all to keep the trains running so that
Yes.
we can keep doing what we're doing. Um, can you this is just your opinion. There's no right answers, and I'm pretty extreme, so everybody probably disagrees with me to some extent. But is there any reason to have churches anymore? Now, can I tell you my reason? I know I don't want to get
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
want
Yeah.
to get you over a barrel where you have to explain it to people or anything, but Um, if I want to hear a sermon, I love hearing good public speaking. I
Love
can
podcasts.
love podcasts and so on. We could get the best of those from anywhere in the world right now at our fingertips in
Mhm.
5 minutes. I wouldn't have to dress up and drive an hour to church. Um, I can go to a concert. We're going to a comedy thing tomorrow. No, next day after tomorrow, up in Omaha or Council. Where is it? Des Moines. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
Um, we need connection. We can't get around that. I think we need connection more than we need God. But um, I usually end up connecting with one person after church over coffee, and that's the person I tell my real secrets to. I don't tell them to the big group because of reasons you've
Right,
mentioned, even in a sort of normal church.
right.
Um, it automatically, to me, it automatically creates a power differential. Where there's different rules for different people. Uh, I wrote today, we're described as sheep that need a
Yeah.
shepherd, uh,
Yeah.
which is horrible because we're not sheep. And we don't need that kind of a shepherd that to boss us around and tell us everything to do. And um, he can be above the law, he or she can be above the law, and we're just the sheep. So
It's a hard question.
yeah,
And I would say that my answer is probably a little complicated because I
sure.
think that a lot of people are in a different place spiritually. We're not all in the same spiritual place, right?
Mm,
So I think there are some people who probably still need that, and it gives them an amount of comfort. I don't think that's where I'm at, and I
Mhm.
don't think it's where you're at,
right.
but
Definitely
I
not
do
where I'm at. Yeah,
but I do think that there are probably some people who get some value out of that. Do I think it makes them vulnerable to being victims? Yeah,
exactly what I
I
was going to
do.
say. Yeah,
I do. But I feel like maybe that's a lesson they need to learn. I don't know.
right.
I think you'd be hard pressed to say that, wake up tomorrow and say we're going to close all the churches. I mean, I think a lot of people would lose their minds over that.
Hmm.
But
Mhm.
but I think there probably are at least people out there who believe they still need that.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I think that um so I think that that's a really hard question because I think it's an individual thing and we're all at different levels of spirituality where we're learning at different levels.
Mhm.
Mm.
What advice would you have to somebody that is, you know, in religion, in a church? I won't even say like, in a cult, but
Right.
as far as because I know on your podcast, you talk a lot about critical thinking and when that critical
Yes.
thinking kicks in, right? And so, what advice would you give to any listeners out there that are they're in that spot that you're talking about where they enjoy going to church and they're getting something out of it, um but do you have any advice for them as far as like how to not like be fall prey to some of the things
I
that
would
we've
have
talked
advice.
about?
Yeah, I would have advice. I think the advice that I would give is that if if it's if you're starting to see red flags and it's no longer serving you,
Mm,
be honest with yourself about that.
yeah.
Because there will come a time when you start to see the red flags and if for that beginning time you start gaslighting yourself because you
Mm,
don't you don't know how to handle that. You're like you almost think, well, I can't leave. This has to be the right place. So you talk yourself back into it,
right.
and you're doing this internal wrestling with yourself, like, well, maybe that was just an innocent mistake, and they didn't really mean it. But when that starts happening more and more, and you're having to make excuses more and more for the authority figures in that organization, it's time to just really sit down and be honest with yourself about that. And and when people show you who they are, believe them.
Yeah.
Believe them. It's don't tell yourself that there's someone they're not.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Right.
there are a lot of people out there that will just take advantage of people.
Absolutely.
And
Mm.
you don't want to be one of those victims.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to be one of those victims. So if it's a place is not serving you, it's okay to walk out that door.
And part of that too is like being able to ask questions. If there's something you don't understand or something maybe you don't even agree with, and if you are like shut down immediately for asking questions or asking for more information or asking for somebody to
Yeah.
explain why we do it this way, then I think in my opinion that's a red flag.
Oh,
Like
yeah, for
that to me
sure.
is a red flag. That is something we're not usually taught when we're being raised in a church, from a very young age. We're not
Right.
encouraged to ask questions. We're just asked to believe at
And
face
follow.
value and follow.
Yeah.
Exactly. And like you said, that
So
is so dangerous. That's
don't
so,
trust
so
yourself.
dangerous.
Don't trust
Yes.
yourself. Trust us and
Yeah.
trust God. But I'll tell you what
Ugh.
God thinks and what you should trust, right?
Yes.
So many things can go sideways with that,
Yeah.
though. I mean, really,
Particularly, I
if you
mean,
don't have
Oh,
somebody that's looking after your best interest, and you darn well better be sure they are looking out for your best interest, then things can go sideways really fast.
they can. And I think that I absolutely think that that is a red flag. And some places, if you're even scared to ask the question,
Mhm.
that's a red flag.
it is
Yeah,
a
Like
red.
%.
if you're thinking, oh gosh, if I ask this question, am I going to be in trouble? That's a red flag for sure.
Hmm.
When you left, did you feel like you went through an identity crisis? Almost everybody we talk to says they do, but you don't have to say that.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, I did. I mean, I remember the first time I was supposed to work on a Saturday, I had a full-blown panic attack because I believed I was gonna go to hell if I worked on Saturday. I didn't recognize it as a panic attack at the time, but I called and quit the job. It was just a fast food job, but I called and quit, and I was just like, I can't do this. And that's I so vividly remember this, sitting on the stairs in my parents' house because my husband at the time and I had moved back up to Michigan, and I was living back. We were living with my parents, and I was having my anxiety level was so high. I remember having that split second thought, maybe if I go back, this anxiety will go away. Maybe I just need to go back.
Mhm.
And I think had I not moved so far away, if I had lived closer, I might have went back.
Hmm.
And
Mhm.
Hmm.
that kind of scares me a little bit. And I
Yeah.
think, boy, I'm glad I got so far away because it wasn't really a feasible option for me at that time to just go back.
Hmm.
Because they were all the way in Texas and I was now in Michigan. But
Hmm.
when you have that, there is that part of you that just wants to make that feeling go away in the
Yep.
moment. And
Mhm.
you think if you go back, that anxiety, and it may for a while, right?
Hmm.
Right.
It may immediately, you might get a little bit of relief from that anxiety.
Hmm.
But the organization itself is the one that caused the
Right.
anxiety,
Mhm.
right? That's where this is coming from. This is the religious trauma. This is that.
Right.
And I had that term wasn't even a thing when I left back
Mhm.
in 1994, and there wasn't counseling out there for somebody, that had been through this. I went to a counselor
Mhm.
one time. The man looked at me like I had three eyes. I could tell he had no idea how to help me. I mean,
Mhm.
he was he was just looking at me like he couldn't, almost like he didn't even hardly believe my story because it
Yeah.
Mhm.
sounded so bizarre.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh gosh. I thought, this man can't help me. I'm going to go home and talk to my mom and my sister because I get more from talking from them because they had actually been through it with me,
Right.
right?
Right.
And I'm like, this man, even if he wants to help me, he doesn't know how.
Hmm.
And I love today that there are people out there and you have the internet and we can do Zoom
Hmm.
counseling sessions with people who are experienced in this, people who know how to help you through it.
Right.
I what I wouldn't have given to have that back in the day. That would have been an amazing resource for me to have. I can't even imagine how much quicker I would have been able to deconstruct. I mean, an example is it took me 17 years to put a Christmas tree in my house because that teaching was so ingrained in me that I
Mhm.
felt like that was one. It took a long time for me to get that, to rewire my brain to think
Hmm.
differently about that.
Hmm. Yeah.
Now that your identity, you have a good sense of your identity, who you are, you trust yourself. you're living a better life. You're successful podcaster. You love your podcast, and it's
Hmm.
up in the top 10 of cult podcasts, up there with a little bit culty and all the big dudes. Um, but what would be kind of your general advice to people about how to construct their lives? Well, that sounds horrible, but what are the big deals in life that you learned through going through all of this? Or the big deals about healing your wounds, the big deals about overcoming trauma, about um, whatever you want to talk about. But uh, what are your big discoveries? I guess I'm saying in the last 20, 30 years. Uh,
I think it's going to be different for everyone. I do think
sure.
that. And I think the
Yeah.
deconstruction process is different for everyone. The healing is different for everyone. And a great example is our podcast. We provide this platform for people to come on and share their stories. But guess what? That's not for everyone. Some
Hmm.
people are not in that place. Some people may never be in that place. For
Right.
some people, that might just re-traumatize them,
Hmm.
right? That
Hmm.
might actually
Hmm.
trigger them. It might be awful for them. I would never want somebody to come on our show that didn't want to or feel like doing that was part of their healing process.
Hmm.
So you have to find what works for you. You have to find what is healing for you. And that is going to look different for everyone. And that's okay. For me, it was not only feeling like I did want to share my story and I wanted to scream from the rooftops. There's a cult in Abilene, Texas, and they're taking advantage of people. And there's still people in there that I care about that I wish would leave, right? And I wanted to do that. That was part of the healing for me. But I also wanted to help other people, that feeling that I had of being alone and feeling like I didn't have anybody to turn to or any support or people who understood other than my immediate family. That's what really motivated me and encouraged me to start. First, I started a Facebook support group specifically for ex House of Yahweh members. That was the first thing that I started, and that eventually, after I don't know, maybe 9 or 10 years, I ended up then creating the Cult Escape and Healing group on Facebook, which is for anybody who's been through any kind of
Still
cult.
there. Still
Hmm.
there, right? Still there.
Yes, oh yes, it is still
Yeah.
there. Yep.
Yeah.
Um, and that group is because I just felt like I wasn't quite doing enough. And I think when I first created the Ex House of Yahweh group, I wanted to connect with the Ex House of Yahweh members because I felt like we could understand each other and what we had been through more than anybody else could understand it.
Hmm.
But when I started realizing how similar all these other groups were, how the tactics were so similar, how the leaders use this same method to get people under control, I was like, I think I have more in common with like these Jehovah's Witnesses and people from strict evangelical churches, the FLDS, all of these people from these other, I'm like, I have a lot more in common with these people than I thought.
Yeah.
And we have a lot, we can help each other, even
Hmm.
though our experience isn't the same, it's similar.
Right.
And I will say, even within, I mean, you've listened to our podcast. We've interviewed at least probably 10 to 15 Jehovah's
Hmm.
Witnesses. They all have a different story, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody's story is
Mm.
different.
Right.
Even if you come from the same church or the same group, your personal experience, I can tell you people that I was really close to in the House of Yahweh, I have heard their story since coming out. And I've talked to them, not even necessarily interviews or on a podcast, just having a conversation with them, and they'll tell me something about their story. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I had no idea you were going through that. I
Mm.
didn't know
Hmm.
because there's also this isolation that happens within those groups to where if first of all, if you're having a problem, you don't want to tell anybody.
Right.
You don't want anybody to know. That's you got to put the happy face forward, and you show up
Mhm.
at the services, and you look the part,
Mhm.
right? You look like the good follower, the good cult leader. Well,
Right.
she's got it all together because she looks like she has it all together when she walks in the sanctuary. Well, guess what? She probably doesn't. She's probably crying at home
Hmm.
because she's in a bad marriage, or she's she's questioning her beliefs, or, something's going on that you know nothing about.
Mhm. Right.
So that's I think the big thing, the big takeaway is that that is not going to look the same for everyone, and there's no prescribed timeline. There are lots of people who have reached out to me and they've said, oh, I'm like 2 years out and I just feel like I should be further along than I am. Oh, don't do that to yourself.
Yeah.
You are where you are, and that's okay. You're right where you're meant to be. Don't try to think that you need to heal it. It's not a race.
Hmm.
You have the rest of your life to heal this, and
Yep.
most of us are not going to heal all of our hurt by the end of
Right.
our lives anyway. We're all, it's a process, and we're
It's
learning
hard.
together.
It's hard.
Hmm.
It is. It
Right.
is. So, and there's no timeline. So
Right.
it's going to look different for everyone. And don't push yourself. Don't feel like you have to be on some kind of, don't mark on your calendar, I have to be fully healed by this date. No.
I think some of that comes from like when we were talking about forgiveness, some of that stuff has just been ingrained in us that we have to forgive and we have to move on and we have to,
Yeah.
and so we coming out of high control religion or a cult, we continue to put that pressure on us even if we don't have other people putting that on us, just because that's what
Yeah.
we've been indoctrinated with. That's what's been ingrained in us is that we have to, um, you know, we need to move on. And I've said that to myself so many times, Melody. Not so much anymore, but at the beginning, I'm like, I should be over this by now. Why can't I
Yes.
just be over this by now? And I
I
went through
think
some,
I think you wrote that, and didn't you write that in
I
the book?
probably did. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was in one of the
Yeah.
chapters that you wrote about that. That was, yeah.
Yeah. And,
And
and, and oh,
I
go
think
ahead.
we all put ourselves under that
Yeah.
pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And going through, I mean, and like you said, finding some counseling, some therapy that can help you through that. I mean, that's what helped me is finally just
Yeah.
realizing like, you know, take a breath. It's okay. Where you are today is perfectly fine.
Yep.
And some days I make progress and some days I'm spitting fire because I've heard a story and I it just kind of takes me back and I want justice and for some people that have been victims. And so, like you said, it's a process, it's a journey, and we're going to have those ups and downs, just like in life in general, right? Life in general has its ups and downs. So, have some compassion for yourself.
Absolutely. You made me think. I just read this quote on, it was like a Facebook post, I believe, just like a few days ago. And it said, some days you're going to move mountains, other days you're going to move from the bed to the couch, and both are necessary.
Absolutely.
And I
And
thought,
they're
ooh, I like that.
Sometimes stay in bed. Yeah.
and they're,
Yeah.
they're and it's all valid. It's all valid.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly. You need both. You need
Yes.
both in your life.
Yes, you
Don't you
do.
need some days you're not going to make a lot of progress, and that's okay.
Yep. Yeah.
So these are two questions. Do you recommend? Okay. One of them's
Okay.
harder than the other one. So
Okay.
I used to have a friend that was a Southern Baptist. As I was moving out of the Southern Baptist life, he said, he was an older guy. He said, I'm staying in, I'm being subversive. And I don't know
Mhm.
what that means exactly. I think he softly disagrees, and things like that. I would be, yeah, I kind of have a desire to go back into some churches around this area that I have an issue with, and I would like to be disruptive. Laura would never go with me,
I
but
wouldn't.
uh, first of all, do you recommend that? The second one, you can take whichever one you want. Second one, Cindy Wong Brent from Parenting Unfundamentalist told us or suggested to us take a year off. She suggested to everybody if you're in something and it doesn't seem quite right, or just having issues, take a year off, and then if that's not okay, then ask yourself, why is that not
Yeah, if
okay?
it's not okay with the organization,
Yeah,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
then why is that?
Hmm.
Why can't you take a year off?
Absolutely.
Is
No, and
that really like
I think that's really good advice, because it is one of those things where you should be able to set up any healthy boundary you want and not be questioned, not feel pressured. You should be, if you're, let's say you're a lead pastor or you're a youth pastor in a church and you say, I'm not feeling like I'm in the right place to do this right now and I need to step away, and you are pressured to not do that, that I would say that's another red flag.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, you definitely should be able to. They should be supporting you and saying, "Well, absolutely. If that's what you need, we would like to support you in that, and we'll find someone to fill your place while you take care of yourself
Mm-hmm.
because that's what's most important. You need to take care of you first because if you're not in a good place, you're not really offering anybody else your
Right,
whole self either.
right.
And we want you to be here and we want you to be your best self."
Mm-hmm.
So, and oh, the disruptive question.
Yeah,
I,
well, let's finish that one first. So
okay.
I have a part B to that. So maybe, and I don't know how you get this advice to teenagers or young adults or whatever, but if you're going into a church for the first time, maybe that's a test. Maybe the
Maybe.
very first thing I should do is about the second or third thing they ask me to do. I'm going to say, no, I don't have time to do that right now. Or
Yeah.
we're going to be gone for a couple months. We'll see if we come back and
Yeah.
do that test and see how they react. High
Yeah. I think
control,
that's not a bad idea. Just set up a fake boundary, even if it's just to test.
just to
I don't think
see.
that's a bad idea. Yes. To see
Yeah.
how it's received.
Mm-hmm.
And just say this is, and if you and I would specifically recommend saying, for my own well-being or for my own mental health, I need to take a break or I need to step back from this or whatever it is, and see if they care? Do they care about
Mhm.
your mental health? Do they care how this might be affecting you? Because if they don't, red flag right away. That's a red
My
flag.
experience is they resist while you're trying to leave. Once you leave, they forget about you pretty quickly.
That's
Yeah.
exactly what I was going to say.
Um,
Yep, yep.
unless you have stuff on them or something like that that you can tell the press or
Yeah.
whatever. But in most cases, the churches we left,
Mm-hmm.
we're on fairly good terms. We're leaving. It's time for us to go, and they wanted
That's
to.
not my story, but go
Yeah,
ahead.
there's subparts to it, right?
Yes.
It's complicated,
It
as
wasn't
everybody
quite that
said.
simple.
Yeah,
And that's it kind of goes back to what you
nobody
said.
kicked us out. Let's just say
That's,
I didn't have an
well,
affair. There's
right,
nothing like that.
right,
We voluntarily left, but sometimes it was because of them that we left,
Right.
right?
Right.
yes.
Um, but then once we're gone, and that we don't hear from most of them
Mhm.
ever again. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry I interrupted.
No, no. You want me to answer the disruption question now?
If you'd like,
Do
you
I
don't have to.
do I recommend it?
Yeah,
I would say no, I don't recommend it. I don't
yeah,
recommend. I can understand the desire to do
yeah,
such a thing,
yeah.
but I think that even if you're talking about just a normal church on a corner and not a cult, there is still an element of that a person has to be in the right place to receive that message.
Mhm.
And if somebody isn't there and they're not ready to receive or hear that the place you're in isn't good or it isn't healthy or you're not in the right place, you're immediately just going to become the enemy. You're
You're
going
the
to be
world. Yeah, you're now
you're
the
going to be the
world.
devil. I
Yeah,
mean,
you're
you're
the
going to
devil.
have you're
Yeah,
going to have run in the church doors with red eyes and a pitchfork in their eyes and their mind. You
and
are going to be a
they'll
crazy
feel
devil.
yeah, and they're
Yeah,
going to feel better about themselves.
right.
We repelled the devil, the outside, the world,
Right.
and we protected our
Right.
members. See what we did for you.
Mm.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
get you. Those are good
Mm-hmm.
points.
It's a really good point.
Really good.
So,
I mean, I
Melody,
understand the desire to want to do that because it
yeah,
is kind of the wanting to scream the truth from the rooftops type of
right,
things.
right.
Yes.
Yeah,
So,
I'm like that a little bit sometimes.
I think Laura probably pulls you back, reins you in a little bit.
Yeah,
maybe a little.
she know at least
She's just like,
knows.
let's pump the brakes on that and think about that a minute.
Or if you do that, you're
Let me
on
read
your
that email before you
own.
send
Yes.
it.
On your
Yeah.
own.
Yes.
So,
Yep.
so we've talked about Cultimatum podcast, and so where can people find that podcast?
That podcast is available on Apple, Spotify, and pretty much anywhere you find podcasts, but you can also find it on the Anonymous Andrew Studios website.
Okay.
Um, And yeah, we're out there. If you just Google Cultimatum, you'll find us on RSS as well.
Okay.
So it's out there and available, and it's ultimatum basically with a C in the front. So it's like ultimatum, but it's cultimatum.
Right. Got
Hmm.
it. And
Yes.
then and then
Very good also.
how can people get in touch with you? So I know sometimes you are, what if somebody wants to tell their story on your podcast, or maybe they just want to reach out and talk to you because of your experience being in
Yeah.
a cult.
Which we
So
highly recommend. Yeah.
yes, yes. I will
I
say
would.
that I've reached out to you privately, and it's like, trust me, Melody will get back to you. Like she will have a
That
conversation
was when
with
I was
you.
being
So
subversive, right? And you're like, what do I do about Carl?
no, no, but
How do we stop him?
what's the best way for people to touch base with you?
I would say certainly on the cultimatum pages, I check them not, I wouldn't say necessarily always daily, but at least weekly. So if you wanted to message me on the Cultimatum Facebook group, on the you can I think I'm in there as the admin, but you can find me on Facebook. You can also message on Instagram. If you send a message to the Cultimatum Instagram, I would get that message. Cultimatum has a TikTok page. You could send me a message on there. And you can always email us at cultimatumpodcast@gmail.com as well.
Perfect.
One last thing. So, is there something you didn't get to say, or um, can you pretend like you're speaking to those that have been abused by churches, those that are trying to get out of a cult-like experience, those that have trauma from cult-like experiences? What do you want to say directly to them? What would be that last word that you'd like to give to them? And all that in whatever way you want to do it.
Okay. I guess what I would say to them is, especially if they're just coming out and the hurt is really raw, that it does get better and it does get easier with time, and that there are people out there that are going to help you and support you. There are people who care, and you're not alone. You're not alone. There are uh all kinds of people out there. I mean, XJWs has done an amazing job at creating their own XJW community, to the point where, I don't know if you guys have heard this, but the actual Jehovah's Witness organization has called the ex Jehovah Witness support system a cult.
Oh God.
That's rich.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, isn't that classic?
oh
Hmm.
boy.
Yeah.
And that they're culty like. But there are people out there that are going to understand and are going to support you. I think that building a network and finding, if you need counseling and you need that support, search for it, look for it, ask for help, ask for resources. Um, that actually we have lots of resources posted on the Cult Escape and Healing group, in particular. But if you message me and you want to ask me for specific links to some types of support groups that are out there, especially for cult survivors, I have a lot more information for cult survivors, but certainly religious trauma, which is anybody who's been through something difficult like that. There's help out there for you. And the other message I think I'd like to give too is that um, I think that that feeling of being alone can feel very, very daunting in the beginning. And I think that you really do need to reach out and talk to somebody. When you're in that space, don't don't let yourself be there in that alone space too long with your own thoughts. You
Yeah.
really do need to get outside resources and have other input, hopefully positive and encouraging input from outside sources that can get you through that difficult time, because there can be a lot of depression and isolation that comes with that, because like Laura was saying before, there can be a lot of shame and embarrassment that comes with leaving a group like that, or feeling like you were duped,
Hmm.
and you don't want to tell that your story because of that, because you're embarrassed and you're like, I
Right.
don't want people to know that I fell for this
Right.
or that I
Right.
was part of this.
Hmm.
So reach out and don't allow yourself to remain isolated. And there are
Yes.
people out there who will listen. And I know if you messaged Carl and Laura, they would listen too.
Oh,
They would be there too.
100%.
Absolutely.
100%.
The other thing that comes from the desert sanctuary side of the universe here is that I've recently learned, been associated with people when some things happen, because everything out in the desert, out in this deconstruction world is not perfect, and there's some things going wrong, and there's problems and issues. But there are people that are keeping, since the Me Too movement and things like that, there are people that are keeping receipts on everything. They're keeping screen prints and
Mm,
news articles and
Mm,
and pieces of information on the people that are acting wrongly.
mm,
So realize that that's also out there, that um, there's information and there's other people that might not be hosting a podcast or have a website or announcing it from the rooftops, but there's people that have been hurt and they're really interested in making things better.
mm.
And
yes.
sometimes I put myself kind of in the way of stuff like that, and I won't say that it's easy to deal with or fun or
Mm.
anything like that, but there's also that type of support out there also, um, where if we need to stand up to a theology beer camp that's hosting abuse survivors or abusive people on
Abusive
stage,
people,
Oh,
right, right.
abusive people. Okay. Mhm.
there's people that want to stand up to people like that and do that due diligence. Anyway, Melody, we're thankful for you being on the podcast. It's
Yeah.
you're just a wise person out here in the wilderness that helps. This is
Well,
kind of
you
what
guys
the
are too. I think what the work you guys do is amazing, and I so respect what you guys do. And I just, I can tell you that from the moment I met you guys, I can just tell that you're genuine people who want to help other people, and I think that's amazing.
yeah,
Yeah.
And
We
I
see that
love
in
that
you as
about you guys.
well. Yeah, we see that in you as well.
absolutely.
And I love what you say at the end of all your podcasts is you are not alone, right?
Oh,
I know
yes,
there's more to
yes.
it than that, but you said that, and I'm like, yeah, that's a great message to leave
Yeah.
with people.
Well,
Yeah,
I'll say it at the end here too. Then,
please do.
as always, stay safe, stay informed, and remember, you are not alone.
Love
There you
it.
go. And
Yes.
from our end, as always, be where you are, be who you are, and be at peace. We'll see you
Oh, I
later.
like
We,
that
we
too.
love you guys. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today on the Desert Sanctuary podcast.
Remember, all who wander in the desert are not lost.
We believe all of our stories are sacred.
We are always here if you need someone to hear your story.
Check out our blog on Pathos and also our YouTube channel.
And stay tuned for our Leaning Forward conference.
Remember, we love you.
And be at peace.